我是今天的主持人宅男，来自上海 FM100.1音乐电台。那突如其来的疫情呢，已经成为了音乐产业第一季度最重要的一个关键词。全球的线下音乐好像都被按下了停止键一样。那线上的音乐呢，虽然是受到了相对较少的影响，但是依然是经历了初期的挫折。音乐呢，无论是从数量，包括品类上面，都会有一定的收窄。而现在呢，疫情得到了相对的控制，那现在整个行业已经开始慢慢的恢复到了运转，逐步的复苏。那各国的音乐行业将会如何冲破危局？虽然说疫情对于音乐的产业造成了很大的打击，但是其实也对音乐行业的更新换代起到了一个加速的效果。所以今天我们就来探讨一下，在疫情之后音乐未来的发展。那在我们今天开始讨论之前呢，先来为大家隆重介绍一下今天到场的几位嘉宾老师。好的，他们分别是粤港澳大湾区音乐艺术联盟主席、中国音乐著作权协会副主席、星海音乐学院流行音乐学院的院长李海英老师，欢迎您。腾讯音乐人总经理、资深乐评人王磊老师，欢迎您。Wang 全球独立音乐联盟网络发展负责人 Noemí Planas，welcome。
你好。
你好 ，Planas。
以及 IMPALA 欧洲独立音乐公司协会会长 Helen Smith，welcome。
Hi Helen Smith。
好的，再次欢迎一下我们到场的各位嘉宾老师。那我们马上要开始今天的讨论，在开始之前呢，希望各位可以来主要介绍一下自己来自的机构以及主要从事的职责。我们从李海英老师开始好吗？
我呢，实际上一部分的工作是那个作曲家。那我的作曲的范围，一个是 pop music， 就是很多流行歌，还有一个部分呢是交响乐。大家觉得很奇怪啊，我有一部分时间是在写交响乐，而且我自己也是个指挥啊，我自己也指挥，经常演出我的交响乐。我去年演了8场不同的交响音乐会，今年呢1场都没有。但是准备有一场是在年底，在年底的那个浙江交响乐团，以及有一场8月份在深圳的一个音乐会啊。然后呢，刚才大家都注意到我的那个 title 里面呢，有一个很重要的就是 MCSC Vice President， 就是那个 China Music Copyright Association 啊，这个组织是一个非常重要的组织，也就是中国的这个音乐著作权的一个收费的一个唯一的合法组织啊，只有一个，在中国现在目前来说只有一个这样的组织。我知道在其他国家它可能会不止一个啊，像日本就完全打开了啊。我们这个组织呢，现在就是目前来说的运转，经过这么多年来说呢，已经比过去好转很多了。我们像电台啊，像电视台，以及各种各样的收费都已经做到了一定的程度。但是呢，与那个欧洲跟美国比，我们的著作权的这个发展还需要很长时间。那么这个是讲一个。那第三呢，我的第3个职务呢，就是星海音乐学院流行音乐学院院长啊。这个我做这个院长，这个院长呢，就是说我的学院里面有300多个学生。啊，然后呢，就是说我们会开展一些音乐剧的一些排练，跟那个原创性的一些排练。那么这个计划也是因为疫情而耽误了啊。我们原本准备3月份开始的一个计划，现在只能放到9月份，看看能不能够开始啊。这样，我的大致情况是这样。
谢谢李老师。
大家好，我是来自腾讯音乐娱乐集团腾讯音乐人总经理王磊。我所负责的呢就是腾讯音乐人的开放平台以及腾讯音乐人整个的内容的运营的部分的工作。我们这个腾讯音乐人的开放平台是到今年整整是3年的时间。目前在腾讯音乐人开放平台上入驻的音乐人已经超过了10万音乐人那所产生的这个歌曲的数量也已经超过了50万首那么这个的原创的作品的数量也是非常可观的
好的，谢谢王老师。For Noemí, please introduce yourself, okay? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I am Noemí Planas, Network Development Coordinator at WIN, the Worldwide Independent Network. First of all, let me say it's a great pleasure for us to join the global independent community in this event and have the opportunity to share some insights on the work of the associations and the value that they provide. So WIN brings together local independent music trade associations throughout Australasia, Asia, Europe, North and South America, representing thousands of music companies and professionals worldwide. And we act as a global coordination and support body for the independent sector, focusing on its long-term development and sustainability. One of our missions is helping develop new associations in territories with no current representation, and China is one of our priority territories. And we are delighted with initiatives like IMCO to bring together the independent music companies.
Thank you, welcome.那个 WIN 是一个全球的独立音乐联盟，那中国也是他们这个音乐联盟里面非常重要的一个，可以说是客户吧，这样来理解。然后 So now it's time for Helen Smith. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So I'm Helen Smith. I'm based in Brussels because I work with IMPALA, which is the European equivalent to WIN. So we group the independent sector around Europe. We have associations in 20 countries, and our members also consist of direct members, labels, as well as associations. So we have an interesting mix on our board of labels and associations. We account for 80% of all new releases and the sector's jobs in Europe. So we have over 20 years established a powerful voice in Brussels. So we speak out on various issues, whether it's recovery plans for COVID, whether it's competition issues. Copyright was a big example recently where IMPALA and others worked together in order to update copyright law so that we can negotiate effectively with platforms. And there are other issues that we are tackling. And what we see now is a real emphasis on the role of music, not just in economic terms or social terms or cultural terms, but actually as regards health and well-being of citizens. We can see this in the time of crisis, with people singing on their balconies, using music, doing live streams as a way of expressing and communicating with each other during lockdown. So we really see a total different regard for music when we talk to policymakers now. So it's very interesting. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. 那在了解了各自的身份之后呢，我们要进入到今天正式的议题啊。我们来说一说，就是从自身的音乐机构的角度来出发，来比较一下疫情的前后对于你们机构的一些影响，或者说你们作为业内的人士看到的疫情前后的音乐相关的一些机构的变化呀、影响啊，在哪方面会比较巨大？那作为音乐人来讲呢，会有哪些应对的措施，或者是出现的一些新的机会？那我们从李老师开始好不好？您先来说一说好吗？
我准备做一个新的音乐剧嘛，那我们跟演出商在商量的时候呢，我们的计算就是以1/3观众的这个入场率来计算了。就是这样子，因为这个有可能是一段时间的一个状态，就是比如说这个剧院可以坐1500人，我们只能进500人，就是这样，以这样的计算的方式呢，就是比较安全的嘛，所以呢，就那个成本也要按照这个来计算。当然，这个音乐剧现在这个由于这个疫情的原因，现在9月份才开始，那么我先说这么一个这个情况，就是说，估计可能对他们也会有些提示，就1/3的观众。也就我们卖票就卖这么多，就是这样来计算的，而且我的这个一些朋友的那些 classical 的 concert， 现在就是1/3的那个观众我先说这么多。
我觉得王澜老师也是比较有发言权，想您帮我们来介绍一下，通过腾讯音乐这边的角度吧，来比较一下疫情前后对腾讯音乐有没有哪方面的影响？
我觉得可能要分2个层次来讲这个话题哈。第一个就是说，我们如果说讲整个的广义的中国乐坛，那么这里边就包含了非独立音乐人以外的大量的，比如说类似于选秀啊，类似于这种流量歌手啊，那么这一块的其实仍然是方兴未艾，尤其是在选秀和流量的层面，我觉得跟疫情没有任何的关系，反而在这个过程之中，他们是得到了一个很好的一个提升。这个提升主要是体现在播放量和这种所谓的收益上。那比如说像这个非常顶流、非常有名的肖战，那他在这个疫情期间所发行的单曲，应该是创造了目前来讲中国的数字单曲的销售的冠军的记录。所以其实这正好是发生在疫情期间。那么花开两朵，各表一枝的话，那么如果再讲到就是所谓的独立音乐人或者原创音乐人这个领域的话，那应该是说这个疫情对他们带来了一个巨大无比的影响，甚至是一个毁灭式的一个影响。因为这些的音乐人，他们的推广，他们的收益有相当一大部分是来自于线下的小型的 live house 和小型的现场的表演。那大家也都知道，目前在全球，这个线下的表演就是已经完全不可能进行了啊。那么虽然说现在，随着这个我国的这个疫情得到一个相对的一个控制，那么在一些城市已经有一些 live house 可以慢慢的开始开放、开始经营，但是对于观众的人数的要求是控制在30%。那么也很坦诚的说，这30%的这个观众的人数的话，因为通常的 live house 的这些艺人他可能在200人到500人的一个观众的规模，那么200人或者500人的30%的话，其实对他们来讲是完全无法覆盖成本，甚至是说更不可能在遑论说有收益。那么当然在另外一个角度，那么就是说在创作的领域和发行新的歌曲的领域，那么在这个阶段反而是很多独立音乐人有更多的机会，有更多的时间能够待在家里能够有一些时间来进行创作，所以反而在发行作品的数量的这个部分上在疫情期间倒是比疫情之前有一个更明显的一个数量上的一个提升。只不过呢因为这些独立音乐人的知名度可能真的没有办法跟肖战呀、张艺兴这样的艺人相提并论，所以他们也不可能去尝试这种一上来就发行这种数字专辑收费的这种收听的这种形式。那么所以说这个歌曲只能起到了一个宣传的作用，当然我们也会有未来的这个将来所产生的一个流量以后的一个分成的一个方式，但是对于结算的部分来讲，坦诚的说对于这些独立音乐人其实都是比较的杯水车薪所以我觉得如果一定要来总结的话，我觉得其实对于整个的中国的原创音乐，我觉得这个疫情的打击还是非常的巨大的。
谢谢王老师对我们的这个总结，还是从很多方面的角度，包括不同类型的音乐人都做了一个比较深入的分析啊。So, Noemí?
Yes.
It's your turn. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, as you all know, music is one of the sectors that was first affected by the COVID-19 crisis, and also will be one of the last to emerge from it, because the closure of record stores, cancellation of concerts, of tours, festivals, and also the impact of the lockdown measures on public performance rights have blocked the main revenue channels of musicians and artists, and also independent music companies and all the professionals and technicians who work with them. So the impact has been huge on the music industry. We have been mapping since the beginning of the crisis the main measures adopted by governments or other institutions to mitigate the negative effects of this crisis. Especially governments and other institutions, they have a duty to we think, to promote and develop culture so that all citizens can fully enjoy this music, in our case. So it's very important to have some financial support to the crisis so these companies can continue to operate and thrive in this environment.
Thank you. 刚刚Noemí提到的是关于政府方面的一些财政的支持，因为其实疫情大家都知道，音乐受到了很大方面的一个冲击，甚至可以理解为是前几名的。因为 毕竟很多的演唱会没有办法举办，包括线下的演出等等，包括很多娱乐场所的关停。然后他说他们那边应该是有很多的政府的支持，因为这个也是政府需要，因为他需要去发展文化等等嘛，所以政府做了一些方面的扶持，大概是这样子。It's time for Helen Smith.
Yeah, sure. Well, as Noemí was saying, it's been very important for us as an organization to map what's going on in different countries. So if we look at Europe, there are so many different levels of action in every single country that it's very important for and very useful for our members to be able to compare. So they can say, look, you know, this is the best option that we can come up with. Why is my country not doing this? Oh yes, and we have this radio in Norway that's playing more local music in a time of crisis. Can we have that too? So it's been a great and very productive way to exchange best practices and really put the independent community in the best possible place to be able to negotiate. As Noemí was also flagging, in Europe in particular, we were the first continent to be hit by the pandemic after China, and so we had this very strange situation. But I feel that we have also learned a lot in the crisis. So I think we can see some positive elements. So we will be a lot greener. So we will reduce our carbon footprint. IMPALA, for example, had already been working on this last year, but now we have decided to do more, and we will reduce the number of in-person meetings by half, starting from next year. So we have half the meetings in person and half the meetings will be digitally. And this is going to part of our responsibility towards our environmental commitments. And I think it's also the opportunity to really take a long-term view for the music sector and to promote to ourselves and how we work commercially, how we work with decision makers, to have a much more inclusive approach and much more sustainable approach to the sector, to actually take, this is what we're saying at the minute, let's focus on recovery, let's make sure that we're talking about the next 5 years, the next 10 years, so that we really have the opportunity to take a long-term view.
Thank you. 刚才Helen 这边提到的是说，因为他们刚好是一个这个欧洲独立音乐公司协会嘛，对吧？所以他们涉及的国家就比较多，所以他们呢就会去参照不同国家的一些采取的措施，因为他们不同国家采取措施是不一样的。接下来呢，我们要聊的这个问题也是根据这个疫情时代来的，因为我们今天主题嘛，其实就是讲到后疫情时代的这个音乐未来的发展方向嘛。想来说一说，因为其实这个疫情对很多的线上音乐起到了某种程度的这个正向的刺激，对不对？所以我们想来聊一聊，就是线上和线下的音乐对于这次疫情来讲受到不同的方向的影响。我们要不从李老师先开始好吗？
线上的音乐，因为我过去写了很多那些就是比较 popular 的作品嘛，写了很多，所以呢，在线上呢我就没受什么影响，这样子。但是我从事的另外一个部分的线下的活动呢，影响就很大。
Yes, I think no, it's very important. The online remuneration, no, the payment that you get for the use of your songs on these online platforms, it's very important. It's probably the only regular flow of income that artists or labels have had or could have in these times. I think the main problem with this is that there is a digital value gap, that this online remuneration is very precarious, I think, because a large part of the income that is generated by this content online still remains in the large of the technological companies, not so much, with the artists, creators, labels. So I think this remains still a problem that we need to be more strategic about. I think maybe Helen can explain a bit more, for example, with the copyright directive in Europe.
And from Helen Smith.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's an interesting example because, of course, it underlines the opportunities that are there for artists when they want to perform live, and there are all sorts of issues that around that will develop. And I think from the independent community perspective, it's obviously something that we work with. Innovation within the sector has always been a big priority. So Merlin, for example, was created for the independent community to be able to license online, and they have agreements with platforms and services like TikTok. And I think what the issue is really around copyright, and whether copyright is fit for purpose in today's age. In the digital age, we have done a lot of work in Europe in order to update copyright law so that we can clarify that businesses like YouTube, like TikTok, like Facebook are still distributors of music, and therefore they need to remunerate properly and negotiate with writers. They need to negotiate with performers, with singers. So it's labels and publishers. You know, there are lots of different elements to the negotiation. And when we see examples of success like that, it's absolutely fabulous. But we also need to remember that all the others who contribute to making a recording, who write the music, etc., they also need to be paid. You know, it's not just selling T-shirts and concerts or taking the ticket price for the concert, which makes the music business sustainable. It's you know, the revenue that comes in altogether. It's what advertising is counted, what's not. The whole definition of what's revenue is really interesting in the digital age, and that's something that we'll see continuing to evolve, and with all sorts of amazing business models that we probably don't even know exist yet. This is where it gets really exciting. So it's going to develop so fast. And that's why it's very important for the independent sector to be ahead of the curve when it comes to licensing, to be open to new opportunities. And I think the answer for policymakers is to make sure that the framework that exists around copyright is dynamic and up to date. And this will put everyone in a fantastic position to move forward and innovate together.
What Helen was saying, it's the important thing. Licensing is your ability to negotiate your remuneration, and the remuneration online is part of your salary as a cultural professional or music professional. No? I think people in the previous years before this crisis, especially in certain territories, but they had focused mainly on the live sector, kind of not forgetting, but you know, maybe just focusing more on the live than maybe the recorded part of the music. And when the live sector was effectively shut down because of the crisis, you couldn't perform in front of audiences anymore. Many of them then have realized, okay, what's my salary now that I don't have a show, a live show? It's my online content and what I can do with it. If you are not properly remunerated there, if your salary online is not good enough, then you're not going to be able to survive. Some people may, like a few examples, like maybe your friend you were saying, but that's not the case for the majority of the artists that are there.
Mm-hmm. And somehow I have a question about the famous artists online, because some artists, they're very famous, they have a lot of fans just online. When they perhaps they're going to hold a concert, they cannot even sing a single song. So it's a very strange phenomenon. They're very popular online, but they have no good voice, that no like ability, right? So how do you think of this question?
That's always been the case, I would say, in the history of the music industry. It's not something new, but maybe the amount of success is what it's maybe changed now. No, that some of them can be really successful, but there's always been I don't know, this how you call, no, artist groups that were formed just by pretty faces. I know if you understand what I mean, and maybe not really a voice or so. That I think this is not new. The phenomenon is not new. I think maybe the only new thing is that they can be very popular in some online platforms.
And for Helen Smith, do you like the so-called popular songs on TikTok? I mean, the only popular songs on TikTok.
I feel a little bit like Noemí, because it feels to me that the notion of quality is always one which is very diverse, and what's popular. And in many ways, what we see now with all these applications is that, you know, everybody can be a creator, and everyone can appreciate and participate in the sense of expression and creativity. And this is fantastic for us to feel that we can create and we can participate. It's like singing at school. You know, you come out and you feel fantastic, and everybody wants to do that later on, and we now have a way of doing that without necessarily having to become a singer. And of course, the notion that maybe companies or publishers will get behind a particular act because they tick the box, not necessarily the singing or the musician quality box, but they tick many boxes, I think is something that is present and will always be present. It's life. So yeah, we can. I think we all remember the example of this from all the way through the history of music. So it's interesting, as you say, there are so many examples now.
那我们继续再往下面吧。在后疫情时代，是不是一个音乐人的突围的一个契机呢？
我觉得从作品的角度来讲，是一个非常好的一个契机。那么在没有疫情的时候，大家可能其实很关心那些，而且很容易被一些不太靠谱的比较空穴来风的信息所困扰。那么在这个疫情的时候，我倒觉得当然总体上疫情绝对不是一个好的事情啊，对于我们的生活带来了巨大无比的一个影响。但是我们也必须在接受的同时和必须面对的同时，其实还会带来一些相对有点意义和有点价值的，比如说让人会更加的注重亲情、友情、爱情啊，注重这种感情。另外一个，可能很多人会开始注重自己的内心世界和精神世界。所以从这个角度来说就比如说像我们腾讯音乐人合作的一个方言民谣的歌手叫张嘎怂还有一首叫《早知道在家里待这么久》，是吧？那么其实从这个角度来说，这不是一个完全的坏事儿，就让很多的音乐人可以摒弃那些之前的浮躁让他回到自己的内心世界，让他去真正的回归到生活本身，回归到艺术创作本身，让他能够去更好的对生活进行观察，对自己的内心世界进行一个关照，对身边的人和事进行一个更加细致入微的刻画。这个我觉得从这个角度来讲，其实是有一个积极的一个意义的。那当然可能接下去就会面临一个很残酷的一个话题，那这些歌曲如何推广，他们将来如何产生一个真正的一个收益。那刚才在上一个问题中我也提到这个话题，就是如果以线下的演出的部分的这个回收，对他们来讲确实在这个阶段是非常难的。但是反过来在线上其实像在这个疫情的期间腾讯音乐整个的3个平台QQ 音乐、酷狗音乐、酷我音乐，再加上还有第4平台的全民 K 歌，这些平台上的流量其实都是一个呈现出一个上涨的一个趋势。那么相应的，其实对这些独立音乐人、原创音乐人，他们的作品的这种被听到的机会，他们的歌曲的流量，其实都是有一个帮助的。那么音乐人的收入从哪里来一方面是从线下，那么从线下来讲，现在是挺难的那么当然从我们的角度来讲，我们现在也在力所能及的。那么从2月份到现在，我们已经腾讯音乐人已经携手 QQ 音乐、酷狗音乐、酷我音乐，我们现在已经做了接近80场的一个直播的演出。从这个角度来讲一个是给他一个曝光的机会，另外一个在酷我的直播里边，其实也有一个网友的一个所谓的打赏、一个赞赏的这个 收入。目前当然也很惭愧的说，目前整个的收入还是非常的可怜。那么也希望其实后一步能够探讨更多的商业化，比如说有客户进来啊，有商家能够愿意，譬如说是冠名的方式啊，还是说是一种合作的方式，能不能看看对这个有一些的一个支持？那当然，从另一个角度看，从乐迷的角度来讲，大家适应了这些独立音乐人去做直播啊，那么也希望其实在这个部分能够在商业化的部分真正实实在在的能够帮到这些音乐人。另外一个呢，就是在这个流量的部分，刚才我讲到整个的流量的这个提升，其实是我们比如通过主动的编辑推荐，通过算法的机制的推荐，其实让大家已经得到一个相对流量的提升。那么我们也会很快再会公布我们的一个新的一个计划，那么就会对音乐人这种扶持的这种现金的激励就会更加的多一些。那么也希望能够通过这样的一些方式和方法，让这些音乐人们能够在哪怕在疫情期间，或者说等后疫情也结束以后，整个的社会都恢复到一个很平稳的状态的时候，让他真的是能够靠做音乐这件事情能够很好的养活自己。我觉得这也是我们努力的一个目标。
好的，谢谢王老师。那因为疫情现在已经持续了很长一段时间了嘛，基本上有半年的时间了。当疫情不知道之后还会持续多长时间，如果有可能的话，如果疫情都已经是一个常态化的话，那现在这种新的音乐的模式会不会也成为一种常态化？就是现在目前的这种演出状况啊，等等等等，或者是说您会觉得未来的音乐模式会朝着一个什么样的方向去发展？
从我个人的判断来说，我觉得可能在一个比较短的一个时间以内，可能疫情还是很难彻底的一个控制，或者说整个的国家的情况会有一个很好的一个好转，但是也很难开放这种大型的商业演出啊，因为毕竟它还是风险比较大的。所以呢，我觉得以目前来说，这种小型的直播，对于很多的音乐人而言其实都是可能会成为一个相对常态化的一个事情。就算说可能整个的疫情就得到了一个彻底的一个控制，整个的大型商业的演出就恢复到了去年的那样的一个景象的话，我也仍然认为这样的形式会继续持续的存在下去。有很多人，我们其实在跟他们邀请他们做直播之前，他们从来没有尝试过做这样的这种在家里做这种直播对着一个手机，然后在那用吉他或者键盘在那弹唱他们也一开始都会觉得这个很傻很排斥。那么但是其实通过这个过程，我们合作了已经其实100多位的这个100多组的音乐人，那么合作下来以后，大家的这种反馈都是非常积极的。到现在没有一位是说我再也不做了以前不做做完了以后尝试完以后觉得这个太傻了，再也不做，没有，反而是其实这里面大概有一个接近80%的比例都愿意继续再做下去，而且有的事实上已经在跟我们再继续做常规的这种直播的合作。我认为从这个角度来讲，这是一个顺应一个时代的一个变化那第二一个呢，就是从平台的角度来讲，我们要怎么样真正能够的帮助到他们。刚才我也说，第一个我们会创造更多的一个场次。那么刚才我已经说，我们已经组织了已经有80场左右的一个演出了。那么在现在的计划之中，在今年年内，从7月1号开始到今年年内，我们还会有至少100场的这种直播的演出来奉上给大家。那么也就是说，至少会给提供这样的一个很多的一个机会。那么我们也希望其实这种直播的场景会有很多的一个变化，因为比如说只是音乐人在家里对着一个手机屏幕，拿着一个吉他或者一个键盘，他自己也会腻，然后呢观众可能也会腻。所以我们其实现在也在积极的在几个城市寻找这个合适的场地，那么进行这个真正的是这种场地性的这种直播。比如说我们就会是长期包下一个 live house 的这种合作。
好的，谢谢王老师。王老师跟我们分享的种种，还是让我们看到了很多未来的可能的。包括其实您提到的很多音乐人最开始可能是抗拒去做直播等等等等。但是我个人也觉得，真正热爱音乐的人，他是不去在乎舞台真正有多大有多小的，关键是能有这样一个舞台，他的声音能被人听到。我觉得这也是王老师这边的线上平台给所有的音乐人所提供出来的。那最后的时候，李老师还有什么想要讨论，想要帮我们来总结一下的呢？
Yeah, okay. Very happy in here and interesting. we're from different, very long distance.
王老师最后要不再用1分钟来给我们总结一下好吗？
在这个疫情期间，大家其实还是要保持一个积极乐观的一个心态，保持对生活的乐观的态度。当然另外一个也要保持一个冷静和独立思考。那在这个过程之中，来更多的重视身边的亲情、友情、爱情，然后重视自己的内心世界，也重视去关心他人、关心自己。我们一起努力去度过这个艰难的时光迎来一个更美好的一个前景。谢谢大家。
好的，谢谢王老师。And Noemí, do you have any views to share at the end?
Yes. So, well, we've summarized a little bit of what's been going on, the challenges of this crisis, also the opportunities. Maybe starting to see the industry in a different light. So focusing on some of these new opportunities, like maybe the licensing live streaming, for example, or charging for online events. That it's something that didn't happen before, and now people are starting to think about that. And then what we can do as associations is share all this information. So things that are happening maybe in China and in Chile, we know about them, and we can share best practices in the industry, or worst practices, and then try to avoid them. Basically learn from each other, work together, and have this one voice to fight for the musicians, the labels, all this community independent that are very spread and atomized. It's very small companies here and there, but all over the world we are millions, and we need to be together and exchange to help each other, I think.
Thank you so much. And Helen Smith?
Yes, for me, the interesting lesson, I think, is when we see the role of music in society, how it has brought people together. And we can be singing and joining in from all over the world, and the fact that we just learn how to do things differently, and that's going to really mark us all in the future and bring us all closer together, which is so positive. So it's the future is hopefully
Let's
bright.
fight together, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So today we've talked about the future of music in the post-pandemic age. I think we can see a bright future in the future, right? Not only in music, but also in culture, in the whole world. We can see a bright future. So let's fight together. As the slogan for the Olympic Games in 2008 in Beijing, one world, one dream. We have one dream, not only in Olympic, in music, in every aspect. Okay, thank you all today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
谢谢。
拜拜。
Hello， 大家好，我是狂草胡梦舟，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
I'm 强东月，我来自江苏苏州，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是朱静熙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是辛巴，我是2020年上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是国乐行者方锦荣，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是方颂婷，
金丝木兰，
马子木，
周瑜
，Weirdly Navalny，
5XM2，
Nardas，
Ruth Oliver，
Codeline，
Andreas Bernitz。
我来自中国香港、
新加坡、湖南、Ireland、Italy、Korea、
US、
Denmark、四川、
Steve Rocks、ERL、Faith Kivo、
把门抵住，维吾尔高卢。
Listen to the world's music.
Shanghai International
Independent Music Season。欢迎与我一起支持独立音乐。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。上海
国际独立音乐季。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
欢迎与我一起来支持独立音乐，支持原创音乐，尊重独立音乐。
从我做起，保护音乐版权。
我们将在这里看见全球独立音乐行业新观点，
看见当下全球新锐的独立音乐人。
欢迎大家与我一起推动独立音乐的发展壮大，看见独立音乐的更多可能。Hello， 大家好，我是科草胡梦舟，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
I'm 强东月，我来自江苏苏州，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是朱静熙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是辛巴，我是2020年上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是国乐行者方锦龙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是方颂婷，
这是木兰，
马子木，
周瑜
Weirdly Navalny,
Nardes
Oliver,
Codeline,
Andreas Bernitz。
我来自中国香港、
新加坡、湖南
Ireland,
Italy Korea
US,
Denmark 四川
Steve Rocks
ERL
Face Kivo
把门抵住，我里布尔高
listen to the world's music.
Shanghai
International
Independent Music Season。欢迎与我一起支持独立音乐。
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，上海
国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
欢迎与我一起来支持独立音乐，支持原创音乐，尊重独立音乐。
从我做起，保护音乐版权。
我们将在这里看见全球独立音乐行业新观点，
看见当下全球新锐的独立音乐人。
欢迎大家与我一起推动独立音乐的发展壮大，看见独立音乐的更多可能。Hello， 大家好，我是科草胡梦舟，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
I'm 强东月，我来自江苏苏州，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是朱静熙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是辛巴，我是2020年上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是国乐行者方锦龙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是方颂婷，
这是木兰，
马子木，
周瑜
Weirdly Navalny,
Nardes
Oliver,
Codeline,
Andreas Bernitz。
我来自中国香港、
新加坡、湖南
Ireland,
Italy Korea
US,
Denmark 四川
Steve Rocks
ERL。
Face Kivo
把门抵住，我里布尔高
listen to the world's music.
Shanghai
International
Independent Music Season。欢迎与我一起支持独立音乐。
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，上海
国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
欢迎与我一起来支持独立音乐，支持原创音乐，尊重独立音乐。
从我做起，保护音乐版权。
我们将在这里看见全球独立音乐行业新观点，
看见当下全球新锐的独立音乐人。
欢迎大家与我一起推动独立音乐的发展壮大，看见独立音乐的更多可能。Hello， 大家好，我是科草胡梦舟，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
I'm 强东月，我来自江苏苏州，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是朱静熙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是辛巴，我是2020年上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是国乐行者方锦龙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是方颂婷，
这是木兰，
马子木，
周瑜
Weirdly Navalny,
Nardes
Oliver,
Codeline,
Andreas Bernitz。
我来自中国香港、
新加坡、湖南
Ireland,
Italy Korea
US,
Denmark 四川
Steve Rocks
ERL。
Face Kivo
把门抵住，我里布尔高
listen to the world's music.
Shanghai International
Independent Music Season。欢迎与我一起支持独立音乐。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。上海
国际独立音乐季。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
欢迎与我一起来支持独立音乐，支持原创音乐，尊重独立音乐。
从我做起，保护音乐版权。
我们将在这里看见全球独立音乐行业新观点，
看见当下全球新锐的独立音乐人。
欢迎大家与我一起推动独立音乐的发展壮大，看见独立音乐的更多可能。